Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. Happy May the 4th, happy Star Wars Day. If you are watching this, just know that there will be a live stream later tonight at the time of recording. We'll do roster reviews, we'll do a whole lot of fun stuff, so make sure you guys are staying tuned there. I apologize the video is late, just kind of one of those things where it's the timing of the day, man. But please like and subscribe, comment down below. We're going to be talking about the Zeta order for the General Grievous droids team and the 501st, kind of two of these factions that are related to the current Lightspeed bundles. I'll make sure to do all of them, but for now we're doing these two. So let's do our introduction here, and then we'll thank our channel. Or actually, let's thank channel members first. Channel members, thank you guys again for your continued support. Hopefully you can join the live stream tonight. Very much appreciate all of you guys continuing to put your faith in me to bring you good content around this game. Looking forward to live streaming tonight. You know, if you get your roster reviews ready, if you're channel members, hopefully you guys can get some good advice if you need it. So let's get to our intro and let's talk about the 501st. Oops. All right, there we go, guys. So we're going to save the 501st for the second one, because first I want to talk about the Grievous, General Grievous. So with these Separatist bundles, right, between the Queen Amidala bundle, and even if you go and get the bundle for General Skywalker, whoops, that's the Night Sister bundle. Here's Queen Amidala. Here's the Padme bundle, so you're going to get the Separatist droids, right, Separatist characters. And if you buy the General Skywalker bundle, you'll also get some of these droids as well. And this is kind of what makes up the General Grievous droid team. So the first Zeta you're going to want to think about for this team is General Grievous's unique ability. The unique ability is what gives him those bonus turns, dispelling, resetting cooldowns and things when a droid or Separatist ally is defeated. Bare minimum, General Grievous, what he really does is, it's horrible for your banners, but he will just kind of kill. He deals damage to all of his droid allies. But as his droids die, he'll continue to take these turns, and it just it'll just eat away at your team. It's really brutal, actually, when it happens. General Grievous will just kind of wreck your entire team. It used to be a really good defensive team back in the day, because General Grievous would just constantly spam turns as you'd kill off his team, and then he would, it'd get you a hold. It kind of like Qui-Gon Jinn, where it's a one-hold wonder. Now, the next one is his leadership ability. His leadership is very important, and when you get his lead, you'll start to see how you can actually get some banners, get decent banners with this team, even before the stat. And that's because when a target-locked enemy is damaged, each Separatist droid gains 2% turn meter, doubled for GG himself, and target-locked enemies can't counter. This really kind of starts making this team work well together. It can really stop a lot of stuff. I have beaten Commander Luke with this team. I've beaten Starkiller with General Grievous. We've seen people. I've done it against JML once, and I'd even say I've done Iden Versio. Now, you are going to need additional Zetas that I will show you, but those two Zetas on General Grievous are the most important to start with. Then, in my personal opinion, you need B1 Zeta. All B1 Zeta does is give him 50 extra stacks of Droid Battalion, which a lot of people are going to say, oh my gosh, that's horrible. What does that do? Well, you got to remember that the B1 Battle Droid, right, he loses, he has, it even says it right here, it has no protection and 1 health. So the 100 stacks of Droid Battalion make him harder to kill, right? Because those Droid Battalions disappear very quickly. So by starting with 50 extra stacks, you're starting, much further ahead, and you're able to kind of work at that. So that's why I like B1 first. Because remember, with Droid Battalion, the other thing is that he gets 2% offense, and all Separatist allies gain tenacity and crit avoidance for each stack. So that can really make a difference in those early fights that you're not going to be able to critically hit. There's some extra tenacity there. You might not land debuffs because of all the extra stacks of Droid Battalion. Now, here is the next Zetas that I would equip. Now, it is arguable of which order you go in here. For the General Skywalker event, the two most important Zetas, in my personal opinion, are on B1 and Droideka. You can argue that till the cows come home. But in terms of the General Grievous team, I would say the next most important Zeta is probably going to be on B2. Now, the STAP could make a very good case here. It just, you actually have to go farm this guy. So I don't know how good, this guy will be. And the other thing is, like, it's a lot of gear, it's a lot of Kyrotech, and then the relics on top of it. So I at least put him in the middle there where it's like, yeah, probably a pretty important Zeta, but more than likely you're not going to get him. And we'll talk about, something here. So B2 is, I think, the next one that's important, simply because you're going to get turn meter for all other Separatist droids, gain 5% turn meter when he inflicts a debuff. And this is really nice, because whenever a Separatist ally is damaged, he has a 40% chance to reduce its cooldowns, right? And then the other one says he has a 40% chance to gain 100% turn meter whenever an ally is evaded or damaged. So B2 kind of takes a lot of turns through that 40% because it does trigger pretty often. And on he has an AoE ability where he's going to deal damage and has a chance to inflict buff immunity. And then on his basic, he will either inflict target lock and then if they're already target locked, critical damage down. So he's constantly inflicting debuffs, which means that you are juicing your team with turn meter, especially on that AoE. You inflict buff immunity, that's a lot of turn meter for your team. Talked about the STAP. Again, the one thing with the STAP here is that it is contingent that all allies are Separatist droids. So that is a big deal there, just making sure you have to use full Sep droids there. And then the next one is Droidica. Again, with this Zeta here, it is adding 25% evasion. If it has damage immunity, a 35% chance to assist, dealing 50% less damage whenever a Separatist ally uses an ability. It's actually a very good Zeta, just one that, unfortunately, Droidica is kind of that first of the droids that gets kicked to the curb. The STAP will take Droidica's place outside of Territory Wars, and even before you get STAP, there's a character who will take the place of Droidica. We'll get to that. The Magna Guard here. I don't think this Zeta is completely necessary. It's on this ability here, so you're going to deal damage and dispel buffs, then stun them. If no buffs were dispelled, reset the cooldown. It's nice. It's not really that necessary. Just target somebody who has buffs, and the Zeta doesn't matter, right? Like, I don't... I get it. Like, I get what they're trying to do, that you can get more stuns out there because B2 is kind of dispelling buffs all the time, but I don't think it's a necessary Zeta, especially because Magna Guard is not taking a ton of turns. He's just kind of existing. But in my opinion, Nute Gunray is better than Droidica. Particularly, I think Territory Wars has changed things, but outside of Territory Wars, the reason Nute Gunray's Zeta is so good is that whenever a Separatist ally inflicts a debuff, they deal 5% max health damage to that enemy which can't be evaded. So you think about all of the debuffs this team is inflicting. So start with General Grievous. On his basic, right, he has a chance to inflict healing immunity. He has an AoE attack, which will deal target lock. So all that, those debuffs are dealing 5% max health damage across the board. Even on this ability, he can inflict stun. So all of these droids, all of a sudden, like somebody like B2, he goes and inflicts buff immunity, and every enemy he inflicted buff immunity to, boom, 5% max health damage. Nute Gunray kind of becomes he kind of becomes this vessel for you to deal additional damage to the rest of that, like, enemy by that max health damage. It is really, really good. And the other thing to remember here, depending on the team you go up against, the first time he's defeated, he's revived with 100% health. Well, that means that's a double chance for your General Grievous. Like, if you kill Nute Gunray once, right, General Grievous gets that bonus turn. And then, if you kill Nute Gunray again, he gets another turn. So Nute Gunray gives General Grievous an additional time to put damage out on the field, take that bonus turn, reduces cooldowns. He really is a great resource for this team, and one that I would highly recommend investing in if you're not going for the STAP. This guy basically replaces Droidica. Sorry for the quick change here. My BlueStacks crashed right as I finished talking about General Grievous, so it'll be kind of a weird interchange, but I think we're fine. So the 501st Zetas. Now, I guess this really is more General Skywalker and the 501st, because I think a lot of you may end up using General Skywalker as a Jedi before you're ready to use him as the leader of the 501st, because you're not ready to gear up all the 501st, and you've probably got some spare Jedi laying around. So let's start kind of looking at General Skywalker and kind of using him as this, okay, should he be 501st or should he be Jedi, right? So let's start with if you're going to use him as the Jedi. So I just have Jedi Knight Revan lead here to kind of, dictate myself. But the first Zeta you're going to want to equip if you're not going to use him as a leader of the 501st is on the Chosen One. This is if the target enemy has no protection when General Skywalker uses an ability, reduce the current max health by 20% for the rest of battle, excluding raid bosses, which can't be resisted. I want you to read that very closely and then remember something. This will reduce the max health of Galactic Legends, if possible, right? Like, I don't think Lord Vader can have his max health reduced, but just let that sink in that you can reduce the max health of Rey. You could reduce the max health of Supreme Leader Kylo Ren with this ability because it doesn't specifically call out Galactic Legends. This is a great ability. You think of how many times characters don't have protection, and General Skywalker is going to reduce it, right? So this is a fantastic ability. It's one of the very few hidden gems that survived the great nerf of 2021, that General Skywalker can still reduce the max health of, GLs. And I can tell you, like, you'll see this in action all the time where he's just constantly eating away at their max health. And just, like, I want you to read the wording carefully there as well. It's when he uses an ability, right? It's not during his turn. It's just when he uses an ability. So whether you're calling him to assist and he's using his basic, whether you're using one of his special abilities, it does not matter. It's an ability. The other thing to keep in mind with General Skywalker is that if this is the first ability used during his turn, right, like on his basic, if this is the first ability during his turn, he uses Furious Slash as his second one. So even before you equip a Zeta on his basic, you're going to do 2 basics, on his turn. So that's 2 abilities, which means that's 2 times that if there's no protection, you're reducing the max health by 20% and then reducing it by another 20%. This guy is just loaded with stuff. Same thing here with Force Grip and Sundering Strike. He will follow up, whichever one of these he uses first, he'll follow up with the other one next. Additional times for him to reduce their max health. So it's an ability, and he uses 2 during his turn. So it's a lot of opportunities to reduce max health. Now, if you're going to use him as a Jedi, obviously this is the first one. The second one I would go for is on his basic, using this telekinesis ability. Now, some people don't like this because this does have the ability to get dodged, right? Like this attack up here, his Furious Slash cannot be evaded. However, telekinesis can be evaded. So there is some people who will say, oh, it's not as good. Here's the thing. Here's why I think it's worth a Zeta. If possible, this attack will critically hit enemies with Armor Shred. And if the enemy is dazed, reduce his cooldowns by 1. There's 2 parts to this that are extremely important, right? So number 1 is the critically hit. Whenever General Skywalker critically hits an enemy during his turn, increase their cooldowns by 1. And then the second part of that was, hey, if they're dazed, reduce his cooldowns by 1. So if you're going after somebody who has daze and you're able to hit them with telekinesis, their cooldowns just got increased, right? If you critically hit them, and you decreased yours. So it's a 2 cooldown swing. And that means that giving you more opportunity to use the Force Grip here, which is his AoE, and dazing for 2 turns, and then also following it up with the Armor Shred. So you can basically spam Armor Shred and daze throughout the fight as long as you're using this telekinesis on somebody who is dazed. And I can tell you, like, I do that all the time. I try to target out people who have daze, so that way I'm reducing those cooldowns. I very much think it's a very underrated part of his kit that doesn't get explored, especially when people are using him as a Jedi, because there are a lot of ways to make sure that daze is landing, right? Now, if you're going to use him as the leader of the 501st, then there's a different order. The first Zeta to equip, if you're using him as the leader of the 501st, you want to go with Hero with No Fear. General Skywalker has 100% counter chance and 50% critical chance if all allies are 501st at the start of battle. So it's very similar to a lead where it's calling out that, hey, if there's not all 501st allies, this ability does not help you, right? So you need to have this Zeta with all 501st, which is the clones right? Those 501st clones and Ahsoka Tano. Remember, Snips has a 501st tag. I think that goes a little bit under the radar for some players, but when you look at this squad and you filter on the 501st, you see Snips. She still has that 501st tag. So just keep that in the back of your head that you can maybe, and I'd say of the one that you could like X out of here would probably be ARC Trooper, in my opinion. He is the one I think I would take away. I have trouble saying that because I like him a lot. Now, the clones are definitely better than Snips in this team. But if you're going to take somebody out, it's probably ARC Trooper for me. I don't know. Come at me in the comments. But I think unique to that first, this hero with no fear is definitely the most important Zeta if you're using him as the lead. Now for the next one, I had a lot of trouble deciding between them. The General of the 501st is really good. As is the Chosen One, which again is the, that unique where he's going to reduce the max health. I went with the Chosen One. I still think this is a better Zeta. Simply because the leadership, it is really nice that, hey, when an enemy gains a buff, all 501st allies gain 2% offense stacking until the end of the encounter. And, you have seen this ramp plenty of times where all of a sudden General Skywalker starts hitting extremely hard. The problem I have with this Zeta is that it does take a while for it to kick in. Whereas as soon as you start hitting somebody with 20%, reducing their max health is just such a great ability that I think it takes precedence over the extra offense, because not every team is buff heavy. So yeah, an extra 10% offense is nice, but if they're not gaining a lot of buffs, it takes a while to feel the impact of that leadership. I'm not going to paint that. That's the one reason I kind of sunk it back. So the unique one and lead are very close together. I'd give a little bit of preference to unique one. Then, obviously, the basic is the last one. Not that it's necessarily the worst, but I think it's the least impactful when he's in the leader slot, simply because it's going to be, I don't want to say a little bit more challenging to hammer people with the days, but in a fight with the 501st, I'd much prefer the other Zetas and then kind of the, hey, give him a chance to reduce some cooldowns and use telekinesis, right? So that would be General Skywalker. If you're using him in the lead, that's the order I would go in. Unique 2, Unique 1, Lead, Basic. Then we get to the first Zetas you equip on his squad, which is 5s. 5s, absolutely, he has 2 of them, and they're the first 2. Of 5s, the first one we want is Tactical Awareness. You've also heard this called the Sacrifice. If 5s can't be revived. When another 501st ally would be defeated, while 5s is active, they recover 100% health, and 5s is defeated at the end of that turn. So basically, 5s is going to sacrifice and keep the other clone alive. The Zeta says, if he's defeated this way, 501st Clone Trooper allies gain his max health, protection, speed, and offense stats in addition to their own until the end of battle. So your clones are going to get, like mine, 80,000 health, 130,000 protection, 215 speed, and an extra 6,000 offense. Just think of the speed alone, that even before any bonuses kick in, 215 speed going into a character like Rex, who's already at 300 some odd speed before any other extra bonuses, he's over 500 speed at that point. So your Rex is cooking when that sacrifice kicks in. That's why Tactical Awareness is so important. It's definitely the best, Zeta of the clones. Then I would say Domino Squad on 5s. And this is for 2 reasons. So this says 5 gains 15% turn meter when another clone trooper or 501st ally takes damage, half that amount for other allies. 15% turn meter when another ally, clone trooper 501st takes damage. Remember, General Skywalker in this team, right, as the leader, it says, hey, if all allies are 501st, right, while there are other active 501st allies, he can't drop below 100% health. Advances, he have protection, cover if he has 0, right? Cover. He can't be targeted, immune to damage, speed set to 0. Recover 10% protection and turn meter at the end of every turn, double for 501st turns, which can't be prevented. So as your 501st takes turns, so at the end of an enemy turn, General Skywalker gains 10% protection and 10% turn meter. So it's going to take him a while to stand back up when the enemy is taking turns. But with 5s gaining 15% turn meter, he's going to be able to get in there, right? He's going to gain turn meter. He's going to be able to take turns, which brings General Skywalker's turn meter up to, 20%. So when General Skywalker falls down, the sooner your 501st allies can take their turns, the sooner he stands up. And that's where tactical awareness can really play a big role in getting 5s some additional turns. It is a really, really great ability. I think it kind of slips under the radar sometimes. You're like, why is 5s taking so many turns? And it's because of that tactical awareness. So I very much like that, Zeta. I think it's really important, especially to get your General Skywalker to stand up faster in some of those fights. So after you do 5s to Zetas, it starts to get a bit luxurious for the clones. I'm not going to lie. I think it does get a bit luxurious for these guys. We start to enter into that, and you could probably skip them for the time being and equip other more pressing Zetas. But eventually, you're going to want them all. And I would argue that if you want to kill Rey, you want to try some of those Darth Malgus teams, you want to do those really risky battles, you're going to want all those Zetas because you're going to need every little advantage you can get. The order I would equip them in would first be Rex, which is Captain of the 501st. This is other 501st Clone Trooper allies reduce their ability cooldowns by 1 at the start of each of their turns. So, that's super nice, right? It's just going to allow you to get extra special abilities out there, which for Echo and ARC Trooper are nice, but for 5s especially, he has an assist, right? And if the assisting is a 501st or clone, both attackers deal 35% more damage. So think of calling General Skywalker to assist constantly because 5's cooldowns are getting reduced. He's gaining turn meter. That's more assist to hand out. And then think you're attacking somebody without protection. All of a sudden, their max health is getting reduced like crazy when you're calling General Skywalker to assist. So that Zeta on Rex does make this fight a lot more fun. But remember, it's only referring to 501st Clone Trooper allies. So General Skywalker himself will not benefit from this. Next is Echo, and this is on Domino Squad. Sorry for the interruption. So Echo's unique. My daughter came down and it's a mess. So Echo's unique here. Add, when an enemy evades an attack from a 501st or Clone Trooper ally, Echo deals damage equal to 20% of their max health, which can't be evaded. So remember how I said with General Skywalker's basic ability that a lot of people don't like this Zeta so much because the telekinesis can be evaded. But imagine that you're dealing 20% max health damage to somebody with Echo Zeta, all of a sudden gets super nice. So I do really like this ability, and it's especially nice because foresight can be a big problem for the 501st. So being able to get that damage out there against some of those enemies, even when they have foresight up, is huge, right? It does make a difference, especially over some of those longer fights. So I really do like this Zeta. And again, it says whenever they evade, so think like deflection, dodge, all of that stuff, they're still going to somehow take damage from the 501st. Finally, ARC Trooper is last, and I definitely think he has the weakest Zeta for the 501st. And this is the ARC Trooper, he calls that blaster turret, right? He has that blaster turret. This will assist when ARC Trooper attacks out of turn. Now, he does have a 35% counter chance, so there is some times where this will actually activate, but more often than not, he's not really attacking out of turn in the 501st squad, because 5s, you're going to want to call General Skywalker to assist more often than ARC Trooper. There are times where this does come in handy, like that, hey, somebody's got taunt, I want to remove their taunt, the blast turret, right, when it, you call ARC Trooper and he assists, and it's going to remove those buffs. So there are times where it is nice, but it's definitely a bit more luxurious than not for me. So, like I said, I think for the 501st, you're going to want all of their Zetas, but realistically, I think you'd start off with General Skywalkers and 5s, and then you can kind of move into the other clones as you see necessary. And maybe to say this with General Skywalker too, you might be able to skip the basic if you want to get to 5s. I'd be okay with that, but I still think his basic is extremely important because that ability to reduce cooldowns and get out more critical hits is extremely important because you know, I can tell you that you get into some of those fights against Darth Malgus, and if you're not critically hitting, it is a big problem, because Darth Malgus will come down and use his, you know, like that, you know, force saber jump, whatever the hell that thing is called, and just like delete you. By keeping his cooldowns, he never gets it out after a few of those opening plays. So that's the end of the video. Again, like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.